Call to order. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the lands of the Halton speaking people, specifically the Kwamatsan Village. The Board of Education is honored to be able to collectively walk beside the Kwatsan, Malahat, Sabasset, Halalt, Mellicut, Stamanas, and Laxan peoples who have cared for this land for thousands of years. May we walk gently on the ceded and unceded territories of their lands as we work together to lift up all of the Hahasmanan. Adoption of the agenda, please. Trustee Lise. Trustee Croft, all in favor? We have Jennifer Strachan online, and Board Chair Kathy Schmidt will be here shortly. She's on a Board Chair's call with the ministry right now regarding their new cell phone policy. Minutes of the November 28, 2023 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. The Board of Education and Business Committee adopts the minutes of the November 28, 2023 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. Trustee Croft, Trustee Lise, all in favor? Action list. We have nothing, petitions and delegations. And education. It's probably our favorite time of the month when the schools come in. So Bench Elementary School, Principal Scott Jackson and Vice Principal Kyla Bridge. And I'll let you introduce who else you brought in with us.
Okay. Apparently this is our first time testing the new technology with the two screens. Hi Squale, thank you for welcoming us here today. Mrs. Bridge and I and our delegation, well, just a moment, are excited to share with you some of the things that's been happening at Bench. Beautiful. This is Mrs. Bridge and I's third year at Bench. Some of the things that we've noticed about our community or learned, we've grown to over 400 students, 21 divisions from 18 when we first got here. We've definitely noticed that Bench has a multi-generational history that is, for me, unique, and I've worked in a few schools. Our parents are interested in the school because they're interested in what's best for their children, but they also have a vested interest from they went to school at Bench. Often their parents went to school at Bench, and we have more than a handful of teachers who I sometimes say only left for about 9 years, from grade 6 until they finished university and they're back. So there's a lot, and anyone who was able to join us last June for our 151st, put off by COVID, 150th anniversary celebration, it was tremendous. We were able to collate in cooperation with the Cowichan Historical Society. We had class pictures from the 1910s and 1920s, and we had people coming in their 80s and 90s and pointing out all of their friends. And lots of people who taught there. It was a pretty special occasion and made us understand some of the responsibility we have at Bench. A lot of community pride, and this will be one of our focuses. We were one of the first schools, so we're a pilot school for the mental health literacy. So we're in our third year, whereas other elementary schools are in their second year. Literacy, as always, is a key goal. We embrace the 5 critical components of the district literacy plan, and I was told I didn't have to look at the TV because it's here, but the writing's too small there. In our professional PLC afternoons, we had a major focus for a couple of years on primary literacy and a lot of phonetic awareness, working with some of the Terra West strategies. We created individual folders so that we track students' longitudinal progress when it comes to literacy performance. We use the dashboard for school, class, and individual trends. Interesting, I shared these pie charts here because we had an enormous focus for a couple of years on some of the comprehension and vocabulary pieces of the district literacy plan, and you can see that they have nice big green pie charts, And so our focus this year, based upon the feedback, is seeing that when it comes to oral reading fluency, they're not as green as the other charts. So that's a journey we're on, understanding that oral reading fluency is a key to consuming quantities of text, extracting information from text, and understanding that if one can read at the pace of a speaking conversation, then the brain is more wired to actually absorb the information. Literacy, oops, oh, there's kids doing literacy, nope. Yeah, kids doing literacy related stuff. Again, I mentioned we're a pilot school for mental health literacy, so we have a lot of resources that have become common in our classrooms. COMES, Second Step, the new grade 6-7 mental health literacy resource. We had a book club. Almost all of our staff read the Reclaiming Our Students book from the Neufeld Institute, which jumped to 4, provides with the SEL playbook a lot of activities we do in our class that build community and connection, because the Neufeld belief system is that human connection is the antidote to anxiety, or I kind of push back and say anxiousness versus anxiety, but we all do know that as a society, anxiousness is becoming more of an issue. And we also have regular runs on the 9 for the older kids and the brand new Legacy Trail, which the children will talk about. And we also, in our grade 6-7s, we have explicit coursework exploring the mental health literacy guidebook. And there's we engage in the Humble Hooves, or I think Together in Stride program community. That was our choir that performed. There you go. See? There's the Terry Fox run, and I put our unofficial therapy dog in the picture as well. That's Littlefoot. And some other kids doing connection stuff. We are strengthening, and you know, the student or population of bench is not terribly diverse. And yet, I like to share that on the provincial learning surveys, that our students overreported for district and provincial average, that they feel that they are regularly exposed to learning about Hulkaminum or local First Nations learning. So our kids are being exposed a lot. We have a group of grade 6-7s right now who regularly greet each other using iSquale, and it's nice to see. We're going to branch into time of day soon. So we have our field trips. We have the dedicated time. If any of you've been out recently, our courtyard, we are working on a decolonizing of the courtyard. It is full of cedar boxes, local indigenous plants, some signage to learn about their traditional uses, and we're working on some carving and some painting down the road. It's learning on the land, and without further, the mountaintop, we believe, is that recognizing again that in some respects our community come from a place of some advantages others don't always have, making sure that our children leave school with positive mental health, meaningful connections to others, obviously proficiencies and awareness of their place. They will become the leaders who one day make our world a better place. I want to introduce Tana's here, and Ari Gray and Lainey Vanderscaff. I got it right this time. I messed up a syllable earlier today. I was corrected. Who are going to present about a project that we did in the fall in Ms. Tan's class that kind of wove all 3 of these components into it. And I'll pull up your display.
All right.
Ms. Tan, timing of the slides, is it?
Yeah.
Do you want to click?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. Maybe Ms. Bridge will bring us our food for us.
Okay.
So Ari and Lainey will explain. Thank you. Oh yeah, you could can walk it around actually. So there's 3 pieces to this. We were really excited about this project and we're really honored to be able to share this with you today. Oh, this is not touchscreen. How do I make it?
Just left click each time you want to change a slide. Oh, yes.
There we go. There we go. Now we're on the right.
Start the show.
Brilliant. Cool.
And then just click right there.
Awesome, Doc. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll just get started. Ari and Lainey have been really calm. Can you go to window? I don't know, it just turned on. We're the MCs for our Christmas concert, and are real leaders in our school in so many different ways. So it was very easy for me to ask them to step into this opportunity to share some of our learning this year. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Lainey and Ari.
Hi, Squill, everyone. My name is Ari Gray. And Sepka for coming. My name is Lainey Vanderstaff. We are grade 4 students from Miss Tan's class, and we are excited to share some inspiring learning that we are doing at Bench Elementary. This afternoon, we will be presenting a storytelling format from Japan called Kikucha, which means chit-chat in Japanese. As you may know, Bench Elementary just recently celebrated its 150 years of learning in Cowichan Valley, and it is one of British Columbia's oldest schools. Learning about our school legacy inspired our community to begin building a legacy trail, which will be a 1-kilometer trail around our entire school. We are already halfway there. Let's take a deep dive into our class's approach to legacy learning for the 21st century. Ecology is the central focus of our classroom, but we don't just learn it, we live it. By taking virtual field trips with Live at Earth, we've explored relationships through water visits to glaciers and watersheds. We also do lots of hands-on science experiments, so everything we learn feels real and exciting. In ecology, we have learned that everything is connected. On Monday afternoons, we learn with Ms. Henry, the Indigenous support worker for our school. She tells us stories about how things are connected from indigenous ways of knowing. Ms. Henry told us that the word symbiosis is another word for relationship. We kicked off this learning with an Ecology of Me project. We used magazines to create a collage of images that connect to who we are and what we like. It was really cool to see the similarities and the differences between everyone in class. Our student teachers, Miss Hannah and Miss Allison, were an important part of this learning too. We are learning a lot about Canada. Most people didn't realize that Canada is as high as it is wide, and that we have the longest coastline in the world. To begin our look at indigenous food systems, we start in the Arctic with a virtual field trip to the Beaufort Sea. We learned about the significance of the beluga whale to the people of the Inuit settlement areas. Did you know that beluga meat is an important source of vitamin C in traditional Inuit diet? We went on another virtual field trip with Live at Earth to Keslada Carrier Nation to learn about Ulican and the Grease Trails. Did you know that Ulican Oil Trail is over 8,000 years old? These trails are called grease trails because Ulican oil would slowly drip out of bentwood boxes, darkening the path. Ulican fish are known as the savior fish. They were an important food source during the winter before the first salmon runs in the spring. Learning about connections between Ulican fish and trade routes helped us understand the relationships in the indigenous food system. Not only that, in math we drew blueprints to design an Ulican fish smokehouse so we could practice measuring area and perimeter.
As fall turned into winter, Miss Henry introduced the Hulkamina word makwat to our class.
Mukwat means gift of food in Hulkamina.
We watched a National Geographic video about food forests.
In a food forest, different kinds of plants are grown together in symbiosis instead of in rows.
Miss Tan told us about an upcoming Lego art show at the Cowichan Valley Art Gallery.
The theme of the show was Nukwath, which means community in Hulkamina.
Our class knew right away that the word makwat was a perfect inspiration.
We worked together, talked it out, and revised our plans in order to build a community food forest for the art show.
We have learned that all food systems respond a network of relationships. We know these balances are key to sustainability.
Netswak, which means community, is reflected through the diversity of a food forest. Look for layers of fruit and nut trees, berries, bushes, and shrubs, herbs, vines, ground-covered fruits and vegetables, plants planted to support each other.
Our school is generously supported by Nourish Cowichan to provide food for children and families in our community.
So it made sense to say Haitsepka to Nourish Cowichan in the artistic statement for the Food Forest Project.
Since Nourish Cowichan truly represents the meaning of makwat, the gift of food,
we raise our hands for the work they do to help our community become a more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable place to learn and grow together.
Haitsepka.
Bravo!
Well, thank you, Lainey and Ari. You can see why we picked them for this job, can't you?
I don't have closing remarks.
Trustees, do you have any questions? Trustee Croft and Trustee Music.
If I may share a comment, so one of my other jobs at the Cowichan Valley Arts Council, and we were thrilled to see your entry come through. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to share the comments that our adjudicator shared with you. So he said, you've all done a great job of turning your Makwat theme into Lego. I especially like the varied tree colors, the food fridge, and the farm stand. So I just wanted to share that with the group. Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you, and you were so brave. And I don't know if anybody overheard, but when the screen went down, Lainey said, "It's okay, just keep going." So
Nobody will notice.
she said, "Just keep going, nobody will notice."
Keep talking.
Which was brilliant. So you have a career somewhere on a stage, I know it. And you have learned so much this year, and that makes us really, really proud of you and your teachers and your school. So this was lovely to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari and Lainey. Trustee Schmidt, do you have any comments?
I just walked in the door, sorry, Mr. Lewin, but I can't wait to watch the video.
Thank you very much. I have a question about your mental health program. Now that you're in your third year, how do you see that coming along?
I think that we've made enormous strides towards the mental health learning being part of daily practice and explicit teaching, as opposed to doing mental health work when there's a situation that we're addressing, just making it daily practice. I know we didn't quite get a photo, but yoga to start the week on Monday mornings in Mrs. Bridges' class. the daily runs on Friday. Measurability wise, I think it's a little bit hard for me to assess and for us to assess because we've been there 3 years and our first year was still in a state of masking and Omicron and things were really quite heightened. So there's, without a doubt, overall, there's an improvement in everyone's mental health, but I don't think I can say it's just because of our wonderful mental health teaching. I think that might be a false equivalency, but it's kids are learning strategies for maintaining positive mental health, and that's kind of the message.
And what about the teachers?
Everybody is happy all day at bench. Morale to me seems great these days. We're at where it's a happy place to go to work. And that translates to the kids.
Yeah, and I will say I've worked in 17 different schools across 4 districts, and this is my favorite school I've ever worked in. And it used to be second favorite, and then now it's actually. Well, I was point there yesterday. I thought it was Mr. Jackson messaging me to ask me to buy snacks, but it was somebody scamming the system. Really? I was like, okay, I will go buy snacks. I would do that for you. I don't know why.
I'll be back in 15 minutes with snacks.
My jacket on and everything. So yeah, they're an amazing admin team, and it is a true story. Morale is high. The staff is incredibly supportive of each other, and I think that foundation of support and community and that longevity of community at that school really brings people together, and it creates an energy that is just so palpable when you're working in that environment. You know you can count on your colleagues and your admin team. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Croft.
Thank you. You folks were, I think, pretty much the first ones to get an everybody washroom up and running. And if I recall, you remarked that there was a lot of consultation within the school community and conversations about that. Other than building a bathroom, did you find that was kind of a community building and strengthening kind of exercise?
So for us, we arrived in the year that it was dismantled.
Okay.
And so I was never there. I think I was there 2 weeks with the old washer, and then it was shut down and it started. I think the students love this. I think they love the space. I think what is wonderful about it is it's supervisable. I think initially people thought it was going to be a door into a washroom, but it really is, if you've been there, it's the large archway, it's entirely supervisable. And I think that we have made some significant strides. I think we're doing some heavy lifting for some families actually in teaching people who stand when they use the washroom to check the space before they vacate it and make sure it's ready for the next person in case they might need to sit. The first year, that was a struggle. I'm still daily swinging through there. I have to swing through midday with the red cloth, but they're getting better.
Not necessarily a great selling point, but
Because I tell families I'm doing a bunch of heavy lifting for you, teaching you people how to use the washroom properly.
Insights, I would never have guessed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bench. That was great. Thank you. Hey, thanks, Harry. Now we have homage.
That call was not working. I think these girls over.
I'm just going to have to look at screens because this is too small. All right. Well, everyone, I have the honor today to present James Kledovich, and Jason Muskamp and Darren Hart, our vice principal, here today. And we're going to be talking about Comiton School, and it's such an honor and a privilege to be with kids in this age group. It's a very special, unique time in their lives, being grade 8 and grade 9. And we're going to show you all the things that we're doing at Comiton to make this a great place to land when you're coming out of elementary and to get you ready for high school. All right, so 3 foundational points that we have here at Comiton are creating strong and positive connections with all of our students, a commitment toward improving literacy skills, and fostering mental health and wellness. Building strong connections, we have a number of things that we have set up at Comiton to help us do that. And we have an advisory that meets every week. Through that advisory, there's a rep from every advisory class, which is about 21 classes, and they meet monthly. They have class meetings within their advisory, but those reps come and bring their understanding from those class meetings to a advisory rep meeting, and we hear the ideas from all the advisories, so it's an opportunity to share. And then we also have from there our DSAC students who go and share out at DSAC and bring back ideas from DSAC. So we just did a survey about the budget. So all of our advisory classes are weighing in about how our budget should be spent. So it's a great way of sort of encompassing what's happening at the school to what's happening at the district and having connection all the way through. And carrying student voice, and as that's so important for us, for students this age, is understanding their voice and the power of their voice. We also have a number of things that are coming forward as well. We have a leadership class, and this is where Jason and James are big players in our leadership class. You want to talk about some of the things we do?
Yeah, we just, well, we in leadership. We talk about, we have class meetings about what we should do for the school and how we can, I think leadership's more of how to get a student input more than a higher up input, and I think it's a really good way of getting that point of view because we can interpret our own, and it's a certain circle, so we can just throw around like a talking piece, and then we can talk about what we think of the thing, so it's not everybody putting their hand up or rushing to get out points and stuff. And yeah, we just we prepare mostly in leadership. We prepare for things that we get to plan. We get to plan most of the things that happen around the school, which I'd say as a student, it's a point, it's not a too big of a point of power, but I think it's a point where we get to interact. You know what I mean?
That's great. Do you want to talk about some of the things we've organized?
I think that's a no.
Okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's a lot of people to be up in front of. So our leadership class has been really instrumental in organizing our really fun school-wide events. So that's dress up, teachers dressed up as students, students dressed up as teachers kind of day, which is super fun because I have to tell you, the middle school child has the best fashion, comfortable sense. I have never been so comfortable in dressed up as a student. But those types of things, and our staff really get into it, and our kids really get into it, and so that's another place of connection where we have fun, because this is a lot about having fun and strong positive connections. So we'll do trivia as well. We organize the dances. We make sure we have school-wide assemblies where we do a meeting, hey, housekeeping, what's going on, but then celebration as well. We have lightning strikes where we catch you in the act of doing great things. You get a little snack from the snack shack, you get your name in a draw, and we'll draw for that. It's a big digital spinning wheel with all the names that are in it, so it's like often like 600 names that are in there, and they get Comiton swag. But a lot of positives and celebration of positives that are happening there. We also have school-wide assemblies where we have just fun challenge after fun challenge. Those your fall, winter follies, if you will, and where we have the kids on scooter boards and the plungers to stomping out who can stomp out the balloons the quickest, but just that raw house challenge stuff that we're doing here at Comiton. So all of that's been pretty new and upcoming, but it's been really positive and a lot of fun. And I couldn't do it without kids like this. They're really instrumental, and I can't thank you enough every day. Yeah, you make Comiton a great place to be.
A lot of what we're doing is about building culture. building culture in the school, starting from a good place. We talked a little bit. I look at our advisory reps and our leadership students, and really, you think of years ago an old student council kind of the way you look at a structure. We've changed that structure around. It's coming from a different place now, so you have a lot more student input and voice into where we're going as a school. I mean, we've had 2 or 3 dances now. And where the kids just the culture is great, and when we look at where we're going, and the student engagement in this is the positive piece. The students there's so many activities. We've got a house system running at the moment where they actually have house teams, so that's another sort of a layer to this as well. So it's created a bit of that that positive energy, and I think we just finished the intramural sports, so we're really getting it going to keep the kids active in the building, and that's the connection piece. So go back to the last one there.
Okay.
All right. So I mentioned dances and house challenges, but the spirit days and the awareness days. One of the things that we're trying to do is tie student awareness into our different activities, and making sure that students are aware of what's going on in the community as well as the world around them, and making sure they're engaged in that. I know that we talk a lot about giving students the opportunity to give us their voice. And I like we mentioned students flourish when they lead, and they really do. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the activities we have going on in our school right now, it's the students that are sort of the groundswell for coming up with, hey, we should try this. And we're saying, yeah, sure, let's give it a try and see how it goes. And to be honest with you, I would argue that the vast majority of things we tried have gone very well this year at our school. So it's great to see.
Yeah, another example would be our advisories. We took it to the advisory reps, but to bring the idea of how can we reach out to community, and have the advisories then generate the ideas to go out to community. So that was maybe doing a craft at the retirement home, doing crafts with the elementary school. We're organizing spring beach cleanups. We're just waiting for that weather to improve. But wanting to, get out there and do those community projects, but not having adults necessarily generate the ideas, but have the ideas generated by the students themselves. So that's a real special thing that we have going on here at Quamitchin. Just talked a little bit about connections to community as well, but also honoring our sacred Hei Stanem, in making sure that we have culture reflected throughout Quamitchin, and the importance of that. So we have had the privilege and honor to work with our elders and to bring our elders in weekly with students. We have field trips as well that we take Indigenous and non-Indigenous students to, so they're walking on the land, learning the history of the land, and really learning the importance of honoring the land that we're on. So this is one of our great examples here where we did a spearfishing trip. But that constant connection that we have with community, and having community come into the school, but then also going out in the community and learning about the land that we walk on. But we also are really looking forward to our second year, where we're doing canoe races over at Palace as well. So that's also something that we'll be doing with all of our grade 9 students this year, and that's going to be a big culminating event where we'll be building up for that as well.
Yeah, being so close to Alexander, we have a natural relationship with Alexander. I know that a lot of our kids have that relationship, and we're working on getting our kids into Alexander to work with the youth in Alexander, so they can see their peers as they're getting ready to come to our school, and it's been really positive.
So we have a lot of things that we're offering here at Quamitchin, and boys, I'll let you maybe talk a little bit about some of the clubs as well. But we have, since closing the campus, we have had our staff really rise up, as well as our parent advisory and community members come in and support at lunchtime with an array of clubs. So we have our band classes open every lunch as well. So we have students who are doing rock band. We have environmental club, game design, rock climbing, ping pong, or table tennis, I should say, dance club, Nintendo club, Dungeons and Dragons, chess, Rubik's Cube, intramural sports. We just finished a 3-on-3 basketball tournament with House Team Challenge, wood turning club, board games. There's more, I can't list them all. But would you say if you want to go and get into something, there's something every day at lunch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can even give an idea of a club, and most of the time it's going to be fabricated. Most of this isn't even a teacher idea.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 it's a student idea.
Yeah, these are kid ideas. So yeah, so it's been really, really fundamental in building that time with students. We also have a lunch eating time where we get to just have a social time with our advisory class, that class just before lunch, where we get to just have a meal together. And so that's another piece that we've added in just to set up for lunch as well. And then also, I'm actually going to just talk a little bit more. Do you want to talk a little bit about, we'll have a picture here in a moment, but do you want to talk about our lunch options right now, free food through non-food?
Yeah, I mean, we're, again, and I think it was mentioned in the last presentation very well, we're very lucky to have the relationship with Nourish Connection that we have at our school. And in the morning when the kids first arrive at school, we have a servery. We have food available for students. We have a lunch program. We actually have we're actually doing a full salad bar for the kids. It's healthy food, healthy choices. And then, of course, we also have a food store in the school as well. So there's lots of opportunities for kids, for all kids. And that's what we're saying. It's for everyone. We want to get everyone involved, break bread together. And I have to say, I've never seen a school where we have this much going on in this area. The kids sit together, they eat together. I think that doing the 12 minutes before to eat together is fantastic, because then they're actually sitting down, they're talking with each other, they're working. So a lot of times the kids would scatter, but they're actually, hey, I'm going to sit and talk with you. I might not have that connection I normally have eating together with someone. It's a busy place. There's lots going on over there, but the lunch eating, really, it's gone well.
Yeah, I invite you to come and see teenagers eating salad.
Yes.
Honestly, like I was walking down the hall today and it was just like bowls full of like leafy greens. But Maureen's really been instrumental. We have a special grant here at Quam, so on top of Nourish, we have this little salad bar, soup bar. So, there's your vegan curry with a bed of rice on top of, all stuff that she makes. And the kids are preparing the food right along with her. So the kids are involved in making the food, and so it really isn't, it's just a natural way to come and get food together, healthy food, and be a part of that process. So it's been wonderful. Do you guys eat from the salad bar too?
Oh, yeah.
And it's great. So it's really, really good food. And we have a lot of sports going on. One of the wonderful things about being a school that's so large is we can offer an array of sports. So if you are a kid that loves sport, we have sport going on. So we had a volleyball team. We had over 64 girls, grade 8 and 9 for volleyball. About the same again for basketball. Huge teams. Where we're getting all the kids involved in, but that's that connection where we're coming together, we're cheering for each other, and we're building that community and that sense of belonging and identity. Who are you? You've got what you're liking. You're all together. And it's a really beautiful thing because we do come from all these feeder schools, so when we can unite together, that sense of I belong here, these are my people, that's such an important thing, especially at this age. So, yeah.
We're encouraging, we've had some activities during the day where we get the whole school down to watch their school compete. So we had a wrestling tournament last week, which that's something you see in a lot of schools every day, but we had the school down for that. We have basketball tournaments upcoming, so there's a lot going on.
Yeah. We even have curling. Yeah. We have an ultimate team that's starting out. So you name it, there's something there for everyone. Yeah. All right, this photo I should say is done actually by one of our photography students, which I thought looks great because it looks like it's one of those really pretty stock photos that are, all of these photos are coming from our photography students as well as our photography class. It's a really wonderful one. We are working right now at Conichin with Tier 1, which is like whole school literacy work that we're doing. So our PLC time as well as staff meeting time has dedicated time where we have staff lead staff with vocabulary building activities and really building student literacy throughout, so sharing those strategies that we're learning throughout that time and time to practice and reflect with it. We also have at Quamachin for grade 8s during their language classes, we are now introducing a multi-tiered structured system, so groupings for students to receive specialized instruction on where they're at and to move them to the next level. And this is exciting work. I get to actually participate in this here too. And I've got my own reading group. And that time to really, you forming another connection with students in a small, safe setting. You're helping students build their literacy and their confidence as they go through. Often they get these groups through elementary, but it has stopped at around the grade 8 level. We are continuing that work, and that work is also being built on in high school. So it's that continuum of reading as you're going through, and Quamachin is not a stop, it is a moving with you. Yeah, so this is very exciting work. So I look forward to talking more about this year. And mental health and wellness is a continued focus at Quamachin. We are a staff that is is dedicated to learning about trauma-informed and practicing those trauma-informed strategies throughout our school. So that goes from it's not even the way that we work with our students and speak with our students, but the environments that we create for our students to learn about or to learn in. And so we're adjusting lighting, we're creating different seating, we're creating options for students to go spaces where we have support staff to work with you. And it is just a team collaborative endeavor that we have here at Comiton. And so, yeah, you're never alone at Comiton. You always have someone to go with you. And that's really the work that we do. Those lessons are delivered through our PE classes, they're delivered through our advisory, they're delivered through presentations that we have. And we also make sure that students have an anonymous place that they can report any concerns so that we can help them with that. So just a variety of different ways that we're meeting students through this time in their lives, yeah. All right, and we also have a deep commitment to celebrating the positive in life and the importance of being kind overall. Okay, is there anything we want to add? Nope. Are there any questions? Yes.
Comment and 2 questions, if I may. So I just wanted to thank your leadership students for bringing so much joy to the community. And I hope that that's something you continue to do, because it's hard to find those opportunities, and you clearly are becoming experts and adept. And that is a marvelous, marvelous gift to give to your community. So thank you so much for doing that. I know the teachers have something to do with it, but we're going to give all the credit. So my question for the leadership students is this. It's probably really hard to pick some of these community building projects to see which one is a favorite, right? So I'm wondering which one is the loudest?
The one that takes the most effect, probably?
No, the loudest, just really loud.
Well, the one that stands out to me the most is more just the way that they can help you. I realize there's a lot of outlets for, it's not an exaggeration when they're talking about the mental health part. They have a bunch of opportunities. They have a whole counseling office where you're completely open to make an appointment, or even sometimes they just let you in. It's really, if you just need help, if you need help, it's the one that stands out the most because it's everywhere. It's just to remind people who need it, right?
So it's a very supportive community, that's what I'm hearing.
Very positive.
And I have a question for you, Claire, and that is, my understanding is that the community building aspects at QUAM have really taken off relatively recently, or, and have you noticed how does that sort of, how does that manifest into other aspects of learning?
I think the connections to what you're doing in your classrooms, to knowing that you can be a part of the community as well. So I think that you're not just learning in the classroom, but your learning is happening as you take your learning out to the classroom. So when you're involved in those activities where you're maybe reading or doing crafts, you might also be doing some sharing of your knowledge during those times, or learning knowledge, because it goes back and forth with what you're learning, because you can be learning from an elementary child and their stories that they're sharing, and you can be sharing your stories as well. So I think it's that bridge that we see happening, where it's going back and forth 2 ways. And so I think seeing that has probably been one of the most beautiful things. Yeah. Our kids get so excited when they know that they're going out to a retirement home or to an elder lunch, and when they come back and sharing those stories as well. So yeah, so that's sort of what we're seeing. Yeah.
Trustee Lisa.
2 things. One, I got to come to Comiton and see your Christmas music concert.
Okay.
And I just get to share with this room, there was one young woman that was up there, and she started to sing, and then she had a moment where she kind of froze, but her classmate went and stood beside her, put her arm around her, said, "You've got this, keep going," like our little one here today did, and they did it together. And so to me, that was so inspiring for how one student took care of another. And then we chatted about the difference between where the students' mental health was a couple of years ago to where it is now. And so you shared that you can see and feel the changes. Do you want to just...
Yeah, I think just like James said, with Quamachin, if you need somewhere to turn, you have a place and a person to turn to. And we make that really explicit when welcoming students. And throughout the year, reminding students these are the supports, so you are cared about and loved here at Quamachin. You are valued, you belong here, and we want you here every day. Making students feel welcomed.
I think just to add there, I think the current structure we've got going on right now, the kids get to be kids.
Yeah, they sure do.
They're being kids. It's fun to see. It's great to watch them part of.
I know as a board, we talked about many times in this room our concerns around, a period of time through the pandemic and mental health. And so it's just really wonderful, not only to hear all the other things, but just to hear that our youth are flourishing. Thank you.
So I give one little plug to our PAC, who's also been really amazing. They come in every other week and they do booster juice orders for all the kids, and white spot hot lunch, and it's just another piece where we have the parents coming in as well, making something special happen for our really wonderful kids. Yeah.
Online, we have Trustee Souza.
Thank you very much, Chair. Both presentations have been amazing. I'm so sorry that I can't be there in person today. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very, very inspiring to see all the wonderful things going on, and especially with regards to, all the activities happening at the lunch hour and with the support of teachers and parents. I'm curious in terms of I'm curious around how the transition was in closing the school at lunch hour. If it seems like all these activities have been outcomes from that, but was it difficult at first? What was the transition like? I'm kind of curious about that.
I can speak to a little bit about it. I mean, this is my first year at Quamachin, and I know coming into that we talked about what it might look like, and we thought, okay, this will be interesting. But to be honest with you, the vast majority of students, virtually all but a handful, have said, I'm happy to stay right where I am.
Yeah.
There's lots going on, and the few there's a few. We work with those kids, and I would say it's that work has gone very well actually, and I would argue that they're like, no, there's lots happening here. We're happy to stay. Yeah, and feedback from parents too. Claire can speak to that. It's been great.
Feedback from parents has been absolutely amazing and super supportive, and the kids are really good. If we do have a bit of someone slips off, we have a great conversation about here's all the things you can do, here's why we're staying here in terms of fostering and building connection and feeling like this is the best place for you, and here are all the things that you can do, and do you have any more ideas that you would like to have here? We allow parents to come and bring in a lunch for them if they're looking for a special treat as well. We're flexible on those things. But it really hasn't been a struggle. The kids want to be with each other at this age especially. And so when you make being at school attractive, it keeps the kids all there. So it's just the work of a team to make it really fun for kids. And it's really important. Yeah.
That's great. I raise my hands too. Thank you so much.
Hey, Trustee Schmidt, then Trustee Strachan.
So one of the biggest things that the board has talked about over the last year was mental health. It was a big concern, but nothing's more delightful to hear from the mouth of a student. The kids just know that it's just okay. If you're having a rough time, you know where to go, and that you feel accepted to be able to go there. I think that if anything, that helps us hear you more. Maybe sometimes it's more of an adult issue than it is a kid issue, because it sounds like you guys have got it well underhand. So that's exciting. Brilliant on the sitting and eating lunch, because when we sit together as a community and break bread, I think that's just brilliant to bring those kids even closer together. But I just raise my hands to all the amazing creative things you're doing, but to you kids and to your leadership class and the initiatives you're making and the things that you're doing to make this world a better place. Thank you guys. Thank you for being you and for being at Quamachin and showing the kids below you in lower grade that this is what you can do too. And so I think you're probably just as much of an inspiration as the staff is at the school. So thanks for being you guys.
Trustee Strachan, online.
She's muted.
Can't hear you.
Oh, you're still muted.
How's that?
There we go.
Can you hear me? God, I got the camera off, but not the speaker. Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm sorry I can't be with you. My son started at the school this year, and I have to say, I just want to thank you for the info sessions, the survey that you ran at the end of last year. It was clear that you put a lot of strategy and pre-planning into what this year would look like. And I think the student leaders that you have engaged, for my son anyways, moving from grade 7 to grade 8, he travels in between hockey and the pool a lot. So he has to make his way through some of those troublesome areas of city. But it's so nice to know when he comes to school, he feels like he has a safe place to be. And I've really, really sensed that in him. So I encourage you to do what you did this year for next year's students, because it really made a difference for my son. And I'm constantly putting those comments through to Superintendent Gray. So it's nice to be able to do it, even if it is by phone or by Zoom. I just wanted to pass that on to you and thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have a question for our students. What grades are you in?
We're in 9.
Grade 9, so you'll be transitioning to the high school. So for the little people coming up from the other schools in the Quamachin next year, would you recommend a closed campus to them?
Not particularly, but
Damn, there's truth.
not entirely, but I wouldn't mind it. There's ways around it. If it's needed, it's not minded. As I think I can speak for everybody at the school that we've kind of just gotten used to it, and there's ways around it. We have ways to get food without having to go out of campus. As somebody who just wants to go out of campus to get food, I'm fine with staying on grounds now. But they've introduced more ways to get said food.
Okay. And what about the activities at lunchtime and stuff? Does that give the kids a little more excitement and joy throughout the day to be able to go do that?
Well, I think it's more because on lunchtime, if we're staying on campus, I feel like we can more bond as a community because we're not everywhere around town. And it's a lot easier, I guess, to supervise because not everybody's leaving campus. I think as a community, we can just see everybody all in the hallways chilling out, you know?
Well, that's good. My last question is the teachers were comfortable in your clothes. Were you comfortable in theirs?
Probably.
Gotta wear pajamas to school.
Thank you very much. As I said, this is probably our favorite time of the month to come and actually hear what's going on in the schools and how some of the things we do make an effect down there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Feel free to run.
Thank you.
The onslaught leading. Hotter than Hades.
Jason,
Walked in from my
they did the budget. They're talking about your world.
fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Well, I think, Margaret, if once that one opens, it will. It's like a wall when you walk in. It's like a wall of heat when you walk in here.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Like a wall, Robin. I walked into a wall of
Jeff Robinson's been behind.
I know, and I was pretty clear for about 2 seconds, but I didn't want to say things directly because it's not my job.
Back that bus right up.
Well, it's not my job. It's okay. Thank you for cracking that door open. And yes, it was a school.
Oh, that's better. Well,
It was a bit of a.
that's much better. Yeah.
Do more of those.
I didn't want to interrupt the kiddos.
Okay, now the rest of our meeting, proposed 3-year calendar. That's for, yeah, I know it's not as exciting as.
No. Can't follow the kids. The pumpkins. Can't follow the pumpkins.
Cheryl, there you go. I'm gonna sit, okay? If I just sit. All right. It's kind of weird having this in front of me, so I'm just gonna. Okay. All right, so I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our school calendars. So we're now in the last year of our previously approved 3 calendars. And so to this end, we are here today, or I'm here today on behalf of senior staff to propose to you the next 3 years worth of calendars. This is something that boards must do. It's in the School Act and the school calendar regulations. And we must make a proposed calendar available to the public for feedback for at least a month prior to submission of that calendar to the minister, and that must be submitted to the minister by March 31st. So hence the timeline here today. When we are doing a calendar, the ministry gives us some parameters, and one of those parameters is the number of instructional minutes. So when we're creating calendars, we have to be very, very careful about the numbers of days in each of the months and the number of instructional minutes that each of those school months have, so that we ensure that throughout the whole year it equals the minimum number of instructional minutes. And so for instance, for kindergarten, that's 853 hours. For grades 1 through 7, it's 878, and for grades 8 through 12, that's 952. So those are sort of important things for us in the background. So when we're creating the calendars, to make sure that that's met. We also have to provide information such as the number of dates and the days in session, the number of dates the number and dates of each day of instruction. Vacation periods and dates for statutory holidays, as well as the dates for each of the non-instructional days, and the number of hours of instruction offered to students in each of those grade levels. So these are the things that are in the School Act and part of the regulation that we need to have posted. So once it's approved, those things are posted for the public to see. One of the big things that we also have to take into consideration is the teachers, actually it isn't the teachers, it's our collective agreement. There's a lot of language in our collective agreement in regards to the calendar, such as when school starts as well as when school ends. It also prescribes when spring break is, as well as Christmas holidays, etc. So there are, as well as hours of work and duration of the school day. So there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration in regards to the collective agreement language. And so that's sort of the regulation aspects when we're creating the calendars. So when we do prepare those calendars, we work as senior staff. And basically the first thing that we do is we roll over, because much of the stuff is historical. So we roll over much of the dates. We look to the teachers union in terms of where those professional development days are traditionally slotted in. Each year, those professional days though are in their April AGM. That's when they ratify when those dates are. So we sort of put in placeholders, knowing that traditionally this is when they have their Pro D days. We also make sure that we've included their collective agreement articles that are in there. And we also compare other districts. So we're looking at when other districts are having their spring breaks, what's happening there. And we also look at all of our previous community consultations, all of the surveys that we've had in the past. So we generally know that from parents so far, most of them have said if you have a Pro D day or a non-instructional day, make sure those are either on a Friday or a Monday and not on a Wednesday, as examples. Another example was parents wanted for us to pay particular attention that our semesters, so in secondary we have 2 semesters, make sure that they're balanced. so that we don't have too much in one semester and not enough in another semester, because that makes it really hard on the learning. So we've had quite a bit of input from parents as well, and so that's also taken into consideration. The Ministry of Education allows a maximum of 6 non-instructional days. And as I mentioned previously, 3 of those, the union decides when those are, and then the other 3, the district looks at when those are. So again, those are sort of really looked at to spread them out equally throughout the year. The other piece that we also look at when we're doing the calendar is the district closure week. So we have had for the past 15 years a 2-week spring break. And that was initially and continues to be, the reason for that is cost-saving measures. We always are running up against budget constraints. And by closing the school for an additional week, the board saves approximately $450,000 annually. And so it's something to consider very, very carefully. The calendars that we have presented to you in your package have been calculated very carefully to ensure, as I mentioned, the instructional minutes. And we always have short years and long years. And so the first day of school is always the first day after Labor Day. Sometimes that's at the beginning of September. Sometimes that's, into September quite a bit, like September 8th, I think is what we had either this year or next year. So that's a number of days. 3 days here or there can have a huge impact on those instructional minutes. And so for the first 2 years of the next 3 proposed calendar years, we have healthy numbers of instructional minutes. However, the 3rd year of our package that we've presented to you, the 2026-2027 year, it's a much later start and then an earlier end in June. So it's a very compressed year. We're actually short by, not short, but it's a difference of 3 days. And so this has happened to us in the past. This isn't the first time this has happened. So in 2017, 2018, it was a short year, and also in 2020 and 2021 was also a shortened year. And so the way that we remedied this, because we absolutely have to make sure we have the right number of instructional minutes, is we've removed the early dismissal on the first and last day of school. So typically the first day of school is a 2-hour early dismissal, as is the last day of school. And that's just really supportive for us in terms of making sure that we have our class size and whatnot. It just gives us time to ensure we're meeting those ministerial regulations around class size and composition. The other thing that we did in those previous 2 years that we're recommending we do again this year is that we take one of the district's non-instructional days and we spread that over 5 early dismissals. And the reason for that is to be able to continue with PLCs. You heard both Bench Elementary and Quamachin. They both mentioned PLCs today and the importance of those PLCs in terms of having time to really work on their goals and having that teacher professional time to sit down together and talk about how they're making a difference for kids learning. And so that's our suggestion there. And then we also unfortunately are suggesting that we remove the turnaround day in January. So typically from semester 1 to semester 2, there's a day which we use as a turnaround day so that the teachers have a day so that as they finish off Chem 12 at the end of January and get ready to now teach Chem 11, really bad example, but nonetheless, that they have at least a day to turn around and get prepped for the next semester. So in this particular year, we wouldn't have enough instructional minutes, so we're suggesting that we not do that. And we are also suggesting that to ensure that we have the number of instructional minutes for elementary, that we increase the length of day by 2 minutes, so from 298 minutes to 300 minutes. Other than that, everything would be the same. So these suggestions are the exact same suggestions that we did in 2017, 2018, as well as 2020, 21. And by doing that, we absolutely meet the number of instructional minutes that are required. So
our recommended resolution is that in the last public consultation process, oh yes, okay. So part of the ministry's requirement is that this goes out to public. And so what we found is when we have public consultation meetings, we maybe get 5 people that come to that consultation meeting. And so we switched a few years back to doing Survey Monkeys. And so we're recommending that we continue to do that. We get very good feedback from doing those surveys from staff, from parents, from community members, etc. So the feedback back to the board is far greater by using a Survey Monkey. So we're suggesting that we do that again this year. And also, given that we need to have this these 3-year proposed calendars out for a month, we're proposing that this go out for feedback ASAP so that we can bring back information to you on February 27th regarding the feedback from parents, so that at your March board meeting, you'll be able to make a recommendation around whether or not to accept or to make changes to the 3-year proposed calendar so that it is ready to go to the ministry by March 31st. So the action that we're asking is that the Board of Education of School District 79, Cowichan Valley, approves the proposed 3-year 2024 to 2027 school year calendar to go out for consultation. So you're not approving the calendars, just you're approving that it goes out for consultation.
Trustee Croft, Trustee Schmidt, second. Any questions?
Sorry.
Trustee Schmidt.
Just for board information, when we originally put in the district closure week, we were in some pretty tight places to have to do that. But what we've learned from that is it's not just the savings that Assistant Superintendent. Look at you thinking, have you retired yet? The sheriff put forward. But we also found that as Secretary Treasurer, who was then, I guess, the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, was tracking sick leave and stuff, and that extra week actually supported in health and wellness as well. So not only did we save money by putting in the district closure, but we actually saved money in sick days. Because we could see the wellness change, and we used to track the sick days just to make sure. So, I mean, the second week of the district closure week actually ended up having several benefits, not just that, but health and wellness of our staff and tracking sick days. So that was just information for the board.
Trustee Croft.
I'm grateful for that. I did not know that, so thank you. I just wanted to honor that this is your last calendar for School District 79, and I'd like to commend you and your colleagues on the wisdom of, now the next person has 3 years to figure out how to do it, so I'm giving them a package. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. How does having the spring break later in March versus earlier, what do most of the staff think about that? Being earlier, because we changed it a couple years ago and moved it to a little bit later in March.
My first answer would be, I think that staff is grateful, number one, that they simply have 2 weeks. Regardless as to where it falls. But I think the biggest reason for that change, though, is that when we had the COVID year, we were out of sync with most of the other districts in the province. And so many of our teachers, many of our admin, many of ourselves in the room were already abroad when the travel was closed. And so that made a sort of an awkward start. And then we ended up starting back to work a week early. So that just sort of made that whole situation a bit awkward as well. And so I think what we learned from that was that we really wanted to be closer to what the bulk of the provincially, what the other districts around the province are doing in terms of spring break, so that we're not necessarily out of sync. And should anything, knock on wood, like that happen again, and we all pray that it doesn't, we won't hopefully be out of sync. And so I think those
Yeah, I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but.
Okay, we have a motion before us. Do we have a mover?
We already did.
We already did that, sorry. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Jennifer and Edward are in favor.
Okay. And now we have revised and deleted administrative procedures.
Great,
I'll
thank you.
look over to these.
Thank you very much. In your package, on page 13, you can see that we have 2 administrative procedures that we have made some revisions to, as well as one that we are removing. So AP 213, Student Support Services, Services and Programs, it has been revised, and it's been revised to align with current practice district and ministry guidelines. And you'll see that on page 14. So there's been some tweaks and some changes. And you can also see that we're looking to remove 213, the appendix around SSS administration, and it was removed because it did not align with current practice and/or organization, and that these processes are more clearly outlined in the school-based team handbook that has recently been created. So that's for board information. And then also AP 215, district use of technology. It has also been revised to align with organizational practices, provincial privacy requirements, and responsible network and data security procedures. And so you'll see on this AP, and I know that we made some changes around artificial intelligence, also with regard to privacy and security. And so it's really been updated to reflect where we are. And I think in addition to that, we also looked at even bringing in student voice. And so wanted to bring it to the board's attention, and as every AP goes, it is really a bit of the roadmap or the steps or the procedures for our staff to be well aware of. And so when we update these or revise these go directly to the principals and the vice principals, and so that they're there for their reference points. Any questions?
I have one. Because of what's happening with the province and their cell phone ban, which we're still is this going to be changed again?
Great question, but we do have another AP that outlines very clearly around the use of the cell phones, and so it's around instructional purposes, and I don't have it at my fingertips, and unfortunately, Mr. Posey, who just left the room, shared that with our district team this morning around how we are absolutely in line with that, and so it's really a matter of ensuring that our schools, their code of conduct, actually have that AP incorporated into all of those. And so I believe that we're right in line with the expectation. But as we all know, there might be a district AP around that matter, and it's a matter of how do we work with schools and staff and students. Did you hear that? Students and staff around how to actually use their cell phones in a way that's appropriate in schools. So we're I think we're well placed in terms of that.
Chair? And just so you know, it's not an outright ban. That there are some classrooms that will be, teachers that do want to use their cell phones, or kids may use it for translations and so on and so forth. So it's not, the media release that went out did say it was a ban, but it's not an outright ban. So cellular devices will be in, but they're just going to be looking at some points on how to add it to our district code of conduct as well as our AP. So more to come.
Okay. Anything else? No? Thank you very much. Okay. Business and operations, Mr. Sandquist. And he's got a whole pile
Thank
of
you.
paper.
Allow me the opportunity to set up what I'm about to present. Got it. Sure everybody can see my presentations when I start to put them into charts. Oh, hold on, let's do this as well. That's one. Got some extras, yeah, maybe. Oh, some more budget information. And I think I'll actually take the opportunity to go to the front of the room so I can use my favorite device, my pointer.
Do you like that pointer?
Yeah, it's been a while today. It has been a while. And I'd like to also acknowledge that Carrie Brainbridge and Claudia McMahon are both here today, who worked on the budget right alongside with me to move it from the annual to the amended. So we've had some pretty big events as far as financial events that have happened to us since we filed the annual budget. The first was our first budget did not consider wage increases for principals and vice principals. That's because they hadn't been funded yet. And that funding came in after. So you see some big swings around the wages in those categories from where we were in the annual to where we are in the amended. The other areas where we saw pressure, the board had enrollment increase in our inclusive education categories, and through the motion of the board's additional education assistance supports were put into place. That happened from the time of the annual. The board also supported the school messenger program, so that's now reflected in the budget. And I would say we had some benefit rates go in the direction that we didn't want them to go, in particular WorkSafe and our CPP rates, which are now have a different tier level. So many of our employees who earn more than $66,000 will now pay on their CPP premiums until they hit the threshold of $74,000. So those all added up to some additional pressures. We have this document here for you. It's called the Amended Annual Budget Guided Tour. And you saw this as well at the annual, and it tries to just outline what is in this budget in a way that puts it into some layperson terms. So one of the main things to consider is that this budget is consolidated. It is now $132 million. That is 14-something million more than it was last year. So big change. You would see the bulk of that being related to the 6.75% wage increase. So 90% of the budget remains in staff, with 10% remaining supplies. So that 90% had a 6.75% lift from last year from where we were last year at this time to where we are this year at this time. So I want to walk through what the funds. I don't think I'm going to go through this report. I'd like to go straight to the budget. But another factor was that we're at 53 FTE over where we thought we were going to be. So we thought we were going to be at 55. We ended up 108 FTE over last year. We're currently working on the 2024-2025 enrollment numbers, and we'll have those for you pretty soon. We don't see much change in our rental revenues, but we did see a big increase in investment income and over last year to this year. And so that is a factor. For every 0.25% that the Bank of Canada raises interest rates, the board generates another $50,000 because we can have about $20 million sitting in investments, which is most of it with the Ministry of Finance. So that's a consideration for next year, whether or not we think we're going to still be high, or whether we're going to start to drop. Because if we drop quickly, that's a significant loss in revenue. So we believe we're really conservative in this budget. We will come in well above our interest that we have in this budget, but we've left it alone and not made an adjustment at this time. We also have a new special purpose fund, as I'm going through the summary here, and it's called Feeding Futures Fund. So that replaced what was known as our Student and Family Affordability Fund. So it's basically a swap, but it comes with less discretion. So the Student and Family Affordability Fund was able to be used for many things like health benefits, transportation costs, extracurricular. Now food is the full criteria on the new fund. And then when we look at capital, and I'll go into capital a little bit more, and I think there's some questions around how that particular schedule works, and we haven't spent a great deal of time on it. But we don't actually, how we budget for capital is any asset that we purchase that comes from the ministry's funded, so the new Cowichan secondary. So you don't see an expense of $20 million or $50 million, $20 million last year and probably 50 this year that has been expended in the budget or in the financial statements at the time that it's made. The way it works is we amortize the revenue that the ministry gave us, 1/50th of it, because it's a building, and the expenditure out for that building, 50th of it every year is an amortization. So we have this matching. So we don't recognize the assets at the time of purchase. We recognize them over their useful life. And that's a bit to get your head around, but basically it means, I think the example I have up here is if we had an asset category with 10 years, that would be a computer. It comes in over 10 years. So we see 1/10 of that computer come into our statements. Expenses, we are up in instruction 11.9 million over the prior year and 4.3 million over the annual budget. And there's a list of many reasons there. Most of those were from the original budget. Going, district administration is relatively close. It is down a little bit from last year, and that's because last year we had the election costs. This year we do not have the election costs, and that's really all you're seeing in the shift other than the wage adjustments. And then we also, in operations and maintenance, we continue to maintain the inflationary adjustments in our maintenance and custodial supplies and have that $50,000 per year equipment replacement plan. Now that's a 3-year, so we'll be maintaining that into budgets forward. And then the big wage increases that came in. And then in transportation, what you see in the big shift, because it is a consolidated budget, is there's a special purpose fund for the tripartite education agreement. And so those are funds that we announced that the board were receiving for the water taxi, for Penelakut, Couch and Tries bus routes, and Malahat bus routes. So overall, this budget is going to be balanced utilizing 3.65 million of the 2022-2023 surplus. I have a surplus slide. We'll explain what that means. 2.44 is used to balance the amended budget, and 1.2 is related to restrictions. So those restrictions are things that we had commitments for last year that are rolled over this year. So it's like having a credit card bill that you haven't paid yet. You have the money in the bank, but you owe it. And so those are things like school supply rollovers, Indigenous education target. So we have used about $100,000 more than we had planned. Pretty close, actually. And then I have this other little slide here that may be of interest. Just how many people are there? How many staff? This is FTE, full-time equivalents. These are the number of positions in the budget, and for the very first time, we have 1,000 FTE. Now we know we have about 1,600 employees and everybody is full-time. This also doesn't include casuals who are in that 1,600 number, but we're definitely growing from a staffing perspective. Now moving to the actual, we put this table in. I'm not going to go over this one with you. You have it on your blotter. It's really hard to see, but basically it shows the amended budget to the annual to the previously amended and giving you 3 budgets to compare. How much did we grow? And so there's the total. We are actually 11.8 million larger than it was last year in revenues and 13 million larger than it was in expenditures. Partly most of that's because we've rolled over the additional surplus and then had all those additional expenses for wages. But those are just there for your information. I want to go to the budget document and show you very quickly here. So there's our growth year over year, and one thing we do have here that we didn't have last year is gain, loss, and disposal of tangible capital assets. That's this number here. Wasn't there last year? That is the demolition of Stanley Gordon. So that has a unique accounting to it as it comes into as we write off that building, and that's where that appears. But overall, next one. So comparing the consolidated budgets in operating, we went from 96 million to 108 million. In tangible assets purchased, 144 to 182. So those are assets that are purchased from the operating fund. Under special purpose funds, we're up by about 1.5 million. A lot of that's due to the the wage adjustments in the classroom enhancement fund. So we have 80 teachers that are funded, I think 76 teachers that are funded through the classroom enhancement fund. That's the restoration of collective agreement. They got wage increases, just like the whole system. That's why that's mainly changed. And then roughly capital. So tangible assets purchased from local capital. That is the board purchasing 2 portables for Francis Kelsey. That's half of that number, and making a $600,000 local contribution to the Quetson Secondary School. So that came from local capital, and 1.4 million came from ministry restricted, but it doesn't come in this budget. So quickly, I'm going to go to Schedule 4 because there's often questions about how does the capital schedule work. It seems to be the most confusing. So if the board were to sell an asset, you don't see it here. Because it sits in our reserve, so there's no income or to be noted. So if we're currently going through the Cowichan secondary disposal consultation, should the board make that decision, it doesn't land in the budget. What does land in the budget is any interest generated from the funds that end up in the bank. And so in that case, this is where you see investment income coming into the local capital schedules, because that's likely where, if the board were to sell that property, the land would end up. And then investment in capital assets, you wonder, this is the board's running tally of money that you've spent on things that you have fully paid for, is basically what that is. And so this is where any site work that has been done on properties comes straight in. If it's been funded by the ministry, again, it's just sites aren't amortized over 50 years. That work has to be recognized because it's not a depreciable asset. And then we recognize the amortization. I talked about how the revenue from all of those, the 1/50th of that building comes in. So does the 1/50th of the expense. And we also recognize any assets that are purchased from any other funds. So I mentioned here that you had the Francis Kelsey portables, and you had the contribution to Cowichan Secondary School. We also have included in the package all the special purpose funds, and so you see them all here, and we track what we're estimating to be spent in each one of those. So a special purpose fund, or your Schedule 3s, they are funds that have restrictions. The board has only discretion within certain rules within those funds how you spend them. Community Link, for instance, has rules. Annual Facilities Grant has rules. So does the Classroom Enhancement Fund, has rules. So these are the semi-discretionary items, and if they're not spent, those funds just sit in those funds. They can't be used to offset anything in operating. You can't take special purpose funds and move them to operating. You can't take operating money and offset expenses in special purpose funds. And then the final schedules that we have on this budget are all of our various programs. So here you would see all of our instruction, district admin, operations and maintenance, and transportation and housing. There's probably 2,000 accounts that get rolled up in here, I think, like in BMW, Carrie, if you were to count them, I bet we come up with about 2,000 line items in that document. I mean, that's why it's this thick, and you see a budget printout. So they all get rolled up into categories that are appropriate for the ministry's comparability. So we have rules from the province and how we're supposed to code things. For instance, if we had a teacher that had part of their assignment was teaching in a classroom and part of their assignment was teaching special education, we prorate each one of those individuals. So when we do that for our administrators, and we do that for our, every department. And so everybody appears in this document as an individual. We budget at the level of each person. So we know each person's name, what job they have, what status they have as far as their benefits go, because we come right down to the detail of, are they single, family, or a couple on our health plans, because we're paying those premiums. So it's very, it actually isn't a very sophisticated program. It's Microsoft Access based, but it does really sophisticated work for us, and it gives us some really good controls. So those are the details you would find in each one of those areas. So when that all rolls up, we end up back up here with our annual budget bylaw amount that I was explaining before. We have gone from 117.8 million to 132.1 million. So this is the bylaw amount that we'll be asking for this committee to recommend to the board. Hopefully I've done a sufficient walkthrough, but if anybody has any questions, I'm very much willing to entertain those.
Trustee Croft, Trustee Schmidt.
We talked about, way back on page 3, we talked about under expenses, instruction expenses, the addition of before and after school care program expenditures. Are not before and after school care programs more or less cost recovery?
Yeah, we have revenues as well.
Okay,
so
good.
There's a section, this is new, so thank you, and I'll actually just take a quick second because the question's been asked and it's fun to talk about budget for me. So thank you for bringing that up. Brand new to the budget is Program 20, which is, they actually call it early learning and childcare, and it didn't used to exist. And we have a revenue category that offsets that. So it is cost recovery in the budget. We're pretty much matching our expenses to our revenues, and hoping that comes through at the end of the year.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt.
Thank you for asking that question. I don't think I've seen that much joy out of Jason in a while. Chair, I'd like to move the bylaw, or the, yeah.
Seconder. Trustee Lise, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Now, that's the bylaw. Budget guiding principles.
I'm just getting there. Sorry if this is going really quickly. In the package are proposed budget guiding principles for the board's consideration, well, the section for the committee's consideration to adopt to the board. Very similar to what we saw last year. We have one intentional change here, and I'm going to just zoom it because it's in red, and we believe is really relevant as we plan for next year's budget. So continuing on with the previous ones, we need to align with the strategic plan. So that is in board policy. That is also in ministry best practices around aligning your budget to your strategic priorities. We try to do that. We try to show you as items come in or are recommended to come out of the budget how they affect those strategic plan priorities. We maintain developed as a mechanism to aid in reconciliation. We know that's a board priority as well as a ministry priority. The new one is to intentionally target funds towards resources aimed at increasing Indigenous student graduation rates. We know that that is work that could be improved upon. So we want to look at adding that one. We recommend adding that one in. Developed on a principle of equity, that remains. Transparent. We do try to have good reporting out and communication. So there's a series of meetings that the board have scheduled with the partner groups to come and present. But it's also not just having them come and present. We need to report out back to those groups what decisions the board made. And we do that through really that document I just went through with you, the guided tour. That becomes our public disclosure event on how to describe what the board actually did within the budget process. It's required to comply with the School Act and collective agreements. So these are really the legal part of it. We can't file a deficit budget. We can't budget in a way that we're not going to give anybody salary increases next year. Those are collective agreement terms. They have to be considered. And then multi-year implications. So that again is now part of new board policy and an expectation of the ministry that we develop three-year financial plans. And we do that through this process. So we start out with if the board left the budget as it was, what's this going to look like for the board in year 2 and year 3? Because you could spend all of your money that you have in surplus and then not have any for the next years. So we always have to have that lens around decisions. And then we often ask the questions around short-term and long-term priorities when you're doing your liaisons, because if you had a surplus, should you use it now? Is the bang for the buck to do something one time that's big and huge? Will that change the system, or is it better to leave something in the system for a longer period of time? So those are the other ones. And then, of course, maintaining an appropriate contingency balance. When we talk about 1% to 3%, those are the board's, basically life savings. And need to be there for a rainy day and for planning purposes. So those are the ones that we're recommending right now.
Trustee Croft.
One tiny question, and that is that I think it would be more proper English-wise to say principles of equity. I just did a quick scan online. That's how it's usually said. I just don't want someone to say, "What's your one principle of equity?"
We can. This is recommendation to the board, so we can make that so when it comes to the board, it's reflected.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? No. Okay. I will move for the motion. Trustee Schmidt, second Trustee Croft. All in favor? Motion carried. All right. Thank you very much. You have a question?
I do not sorry, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe I was looking at trustee Strachan's hand, but she was voting.
Oh, okay.
That was my vote.
All right, well done, well done.
Thank you very much. Highlights of the January 23rd, 2024 Advisory Committee meeting. Trustee Croft.
You know, we had some very good feedback, but it was a lot about how it was just another January. So we were very pleased to receive those remarks. There were a lot of exciting things going on in the Indigenous observances around reconciliation. And mostly just people looking forward to the new year. That's it.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Trustee. Trustee
Yeah, that works too.
Hey, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. We will see everybody next week.